All right, hey everybody. This is our second to last presentation. I can't believe how fast these 8 weeks have gone by. This week we're talking about understanding concepts and then comparing them to how they can be applied in the public sector of government. So, first I'm going to start with dichotomy. According to the Merriam-Webster definition, it's a division into two especially mutually exclusive or contradictory groups or entities. Um, my understanding of it is a little bit different, especially in the political administration dichotomy. The purpose of the political administration dichotomy is to kind of separate the power so that the politics are and policy are different and separated from actually working out and applying those policies. This was preventing other like politicians to giving the jobs to their friends or supporters and not people who are actually qualified. So as it relates to government, we see often that it's to help avoid corruption. So experts are holding the position of that needed expertise. And the politicians and the administration work together to get the policy worked out better. Next, we have federalism. The Merriam-Webster definition is the distribution of power in an organization between a central authority and the constituent units. So we see that usually with our state government and our national government. The federalism can be broken down into several different types of federalism. Mostly we see the marble cake federalism and the layer cake federalism. In the marble cake, it's implied in the system that roles and responsibilities are intermixed in a variety of patterns, like vertically, horizontally, diagonally, where we see each different level of government working together through the federal government, the state government, and then the actual like city government or society that they're trying to put the legislation in. With the layer cake, though, they all work parallel to one another, but like rarely together. So it's a little less efficient, if you ask me. I think that working together always results in a better outcome. When you have multiple hands on something and multiple minds, you tend to hit it from every direction instead of just one point of view. As this relates to government, I think we see this most with like controversial legislation and powers that we've given the federal government, whether the having gays having the right to marry is really a federal issue. I don't think so. I think that's more of a state issue where each state feels differently about it, and so they should allow like the states should have the power to vote on that themselves versus it being federally regulated. Same thing. Actually, not the same thing. Excuse me. I feel differently though. However, when it came to the passing of the marijuana for recreational and medical purposes. So far, I think it's passed in like Colorado and California. I'm not really sure, but I do think that the DEA should be involved in that, and that I know still that marijuana use is federally illegal. So the states are going against that right now in Colorado and California, and I think that is a power that the federal government still should have. Next, we're talking about bureaucracy. In the Merriam-Webster definition, it's a government characterized by specializations of functions, adherence to fixed rules, and a hierarchy of authority. I think today there is a stigma or like a bad reputation or bad taste in your mouth that the general public has with the word bureaucracy, but really in itself, it's not inherently bad. In theory, it's really good. It keeps people responsible for their line or where they are at in the hierarchy chain. They're responsible for the tasks and duties that fall under their rule. It makes a paper trail of everything. So if something is corrupt or there is money laundering or whatever it is, there's going to be a clear written pattern back to who it happened to. I think in the government organizations today, I think that the DMV and the public library are really good examples for these. In the DMV, it often, like this picture shown, people all the way down the line. Even if you make an appointment now online, you still are waiting in huge lines. And then you go to this window and they tell you, oh no, you're supposed to get in that line. And you just is constantly going in circles trying to figure out where you're supposed to be. And it often feels like you're not getting anything done. In the public library, it's really more of an example of the hierarchy in bureaucracy that happens. There will be like a head librarian who would be at the top of the hierarchy, and then she has specialized librarians that are in charge for different sections throughout the library, and she delegates them that way. Also, there's tons of written documentation at the library. We all know that. When you're trying to check out a book, it's a whole process of getting your library card and checking it out and that whole thing. Next, we're going to talk about leadership. The Merriam-Webster definition is the act or the instance of leading. There are several different theories that we looked at over the course of these 8 weeks. There's the situational leadership theory, which says that there's no single way that's the best way to lead. It's kind of like, I think of it, it's kind of like Paul, where he says, I'm everything to everyone. Like, you just have to be versatile, understand people, and know what they need in order to drive them to succeed. There's the transformational leadership theory, which is trying to enable your employees to do things for themselves without having to micromanage them, and setting them up for success and creativity and open to ideas of maybe finding a more efficient way to do things. And there's also the trait theory of leadership, which thinks that, some people are born leaders, some people aren't. You either have the traits to be a leader or you don't. So whether one of them is true or none of them are true, it kind of is just these theories aren't saying that this is the one true theory of leadership. It's saying that these are multiple approaches that you can take to your leadership. As it relates to government organizations, I think that Michelle Obama and Barack Obama are tremendous examples of great leadership in our country in the public sector. I want to start with Michelle because I'm totally in love with her. I'm a nutrition major, so her Let's Move movement for the public school system was extremely beneficial to our food industry policy that's going on, especially when it comes to our youth. Overall, our food industry needs major reformation, but Michelle Obama made huge steps in helping the health of our children increase by changing the public school system's food programs. And then Barack Obama, he won the Nobel Peace Prize for his leadership, and he ended the 2008 recession. And I think these are just great leaders that we saw in the last 8 years, and how things really can change if you lead well and if you stay focused on your dream. Next, we're going to go talk about decision making. This is the act or process of deciding something, especially with a group of people. There's many factors that go into decision making, and so making a right decision, you have to weigh the pros and cons, and really decide what's the best thing to do. So I think that Trump actually has done a great job in decision making in this first year. He's had to make a lot of tough decisions, and he's been willing to make them and stand by his decisions. For example, he actually enforced Barack Obama's red line against Syria's use of chemical weapons. He's taken a surprisingly tough line with Russia. He approved a $47 million arms package for the Ukraine and sent troops to Poland's border with Russia, and imposed new sanctions on Moscow for violating the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, which is huge. He also recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Only 4 presidents have promised to do it in the past, but he's the only one that actually did. So that concludes my presentation for this week. I really enjoyed making this one, it's really always fun to apply what you've learned to real life situations that you can see. So I hope the examples that I showed you, you found interesting as well. All right, you guys, have a good rest of your week and good luck on the final.